Under the scorching sun, Koffi lay battered and exhausted on a wooden raft drifting along the ocean waters. Opening his eyes, he saw seagulls and vultures hovering over him. Just then, he heard loud female voices screaming. Turning to look ahead, he saw the faint figures of 3 women running towards him. It's a man, Dana," one said to the other as they started swimming towards him. Too faint to say a word, his vision blurred, painted on his raft. The women swarmed towards him. Driving the hungry seabirds away, they dragged him ashore. Kayana Island, a secluded island on the far side of the African coastline, inhabited only by so many beautiful and vibrant-looking women. They catered for him, and the local medicine woman attended to his wounds, doing everything to revive him. Worry and despair were written all over their faces as the women prayed that Koffi, a stranger they had just met, would survive. For the past 7 years, the women of Kayana had done all they could to return to a regular lifestyle without men. Having Koffi was a miracle from the gods of the Caribbean. The women sat all night around Koffi, checking on him every few minutes and pouring water on him to help him awaken. Early morning on the 3rd day, Koffi opened his eyes to the most beautiful sight he had seen since the death of his dear mother. "Am I dead?" he asked in subtle surprise. 4 of the women laughed and blushed, biting their fingers. "Not at all, good sir. You are a miracle to our island, and our prayers have been answered." Koffi's face lit up with a grin, but a little confused. He sat up and looked around. He walked around the hut and stood by the door to look over the crowd of over 300 beautiful women in front of his hut. "Where are all the men amongst you? Why so many women and no men or children?" The chief among them introduced herself. "I am Nana, the leader of Kayana Island." Koffi introduced himself and told the leader he was shipwrecked, avoiding to get too many details about himself until he was sure of his safety. "Koffi, to answer your question, our husbands are very much all right. They have only gone for a trading journey, which has taken quite a while, although we're expecting them before the end of the month." Koffi felt a little at rest and went back into the leader's hut where he was being housed. The village women loaded Koffi with unending gifts, mostly various delicacies from the island. "Sorry, Mr. Koffi, you'll have to eat a whole lot of food. The island has really blessed us with a lot, but since you are the only man around, you're in luck," the leader said. Koffi was having the time of his life for about a week. Then he started spending time talking with Nana and the other women on the island. When he felt it was safe to share, he asked all the women to gather together and shared his story. "I was shipwrecked with my mother during a journey over the Atlantic. Only I and my mother, Rhoda, survived the shipwreck and were able to hang to a log of wood that floated us to a very small deserted island. The island only had trees, grasses, and rocks, but nobody on it. I was 6 years old when this happened, and my mother had to take care of me and did everything to keep me alive on that island. She taught me everything I know today. We ate shrubs and little fishes every now and then. She taught me how to swim, and with her training, I could hold my breath underwater for over 30 minutes. When I turned 12 years old, My mother fell sick and died within 2 months. I was devastated after burying her on the far side of the island. I stayed alone on the island for another 10 years, accustomed to isolation and feeding off the sea creatures. I thought of taking my life several times, but changed my mind at the last minute. I was tired and decided it was time to leave. I cut down the tree that had grown and built the raft that you found me on. After staying afloat for several days, I was exhausted and waited for death to take me. That was when I arrived at your island. By the time he was done, almost half of the women were crying. Koffi felt really loved and promised them that he would do all he could to keep them safe until their husbands returned, so he could be part of the community. One morning, Koffi woke up to a commotion and was not allowed to step out. "Please, Koffi, stay down. It's for your own good." 3 women guarded the door of the chief's hut with him inside. "What's going on?" he asked, but received no response. 7 extraordinarily beautiful women had swum up from the ocean and were walking into the village. The chief and some women approached them. "What do you come here to do?" One of the 7 women spoke up. "We smell the presence of a man here. Bring him to us immediately." The leader defied their request. "You have taken our men for the past 7 years. We don't know what you speak of. Please, leave us in peace." The leader of the 7 laughed and nodded to one of her team. With one giant leap, she flew into the air and landed right in front of the hut where Koffi was being held. Her powerful stomp as she landed shook the ground. A fight broke out immediately at the meeting point by the river, with the leader and the other women fighting furiously to ward off the intruders. Koffi stood confused and couldn't make sense of anything yet. With one wave of her hand, a heavy force blew the door and its frame open where Koffi was held. The woman walked majestically into the tent and headed straight for Koffi as he lay on the ground in confusion. 2 of the 3 women guarding her charged at the intruder with their spears, but with one wave of her hand, which was half covered in scales, both women were cut down by an invisible force. Koffi's defense instincts quickly kicked in, and he grabbed one of the spears beside him. With a powerful strike, he landed a blow on the intruder, piercing straight through her. Koffi leaped out of the hut and headed toward the other women, still engaging Nana by the shore in a fierce fight. As he ran towards them, he could see about 6 bodies of his women already laying dead on the ground. In anger, he swung the spear at the target in the midst of the commotion. Another perfect strike hit another of the intruders as she screamed in pain. The leader of the intruders instantly reckoned that the man was a death bringer and signaled her comrades. All 5 of them leaped into the air and landed in the ocean. They emerged one last time to take a better look at their attackers and the stranger who had dealt with them. Koffi stood proudly with his broad chest shining in the sunlight and stared at them in the water. They had transformed into their true nature, vile-looking creatures with eyes that could see through a man's soul. "What's just happened?" Koffi asked Nana quietly, but got no response. With tears, they buried their dead. And that night, the women opened up to Koffi with the truth. "We had been a very peaceful village with our husbands until 12 years ago. 7 mermaid spirits appeared on our shores and displayed immense power and authority. With a powerful spell, they captured all the men that were in the village under a powerful influence. All our men simply walked straight into the sea and disappeared into the depths right before our eyes. We lost about 250 men that day to the mermaid spirits. It was the worst day of our lives. A few days later, the remaining of our men came in from their trading from the east. And 5 years later, the spirits appeared again to finish what they started. This time, some of our men fought, but the spell was too powerful. They once again walked into the sea. We were devastated. And since then, none of the women had felt the presence of a man. Our pregnancies disappeared like we were never pregnant. A few of our sons that were up to age were also taken. One of our husbands returned many years later and gave tales of how they were used as slaves, how they were molested in the Marine Kingdom. They had lost their virtues as men. He died a few days after he resurfaced. We know our men are alive, but we don't know for how much longer. We are women and don't really know what to do to save ourselves. We prayed for the gods to send us a man, and a few days later, you showed up. Koffi's eyes were heavy with tears, and he felt pity for the women, seeing frustration and despair in their eyes. That night, Koffi spent some time preparing and told the women that he would go and attempt to rescue their husbands. The women were in shock. One of them screamed from the crowd, "Are we that bad looking that you would rather go and get killed? Do you hate us that much?" Another added. But Koffi quickly cut in, "Women, it's not like I don't want your company. I have had the best moment of my entire life and I cannot trade that for anything. But in return, I may not be able to satisfy all of you. In return for your kindness to me, please allow me to do this. I promise you, I will return with your husbands." The following morning, all the women escorted Koffi to the shore of the ocean. Nana couldn't help it and hugged Koffi passionately in front of all the women as tears dripped from her eyes. The oldest woman in the village gave him a pendant to wear around his neck. "This will protect you," she said. Koffi took a very long, deep breath and dived into the water. He swam for what seemed like forever, heading straight downwards into the depths of the ocean. His breath-holding skills were an advantage. As he went further down, the lights from the sun began to fade away. All he could see was thick darkness. He started to feel the water pressure on him, but decided to go a little further. At that point, he noticed a little spot of light further below him. It was a spiraling part of the water that led through like a funnel into a waterfall. Koffi struggled through the current until he fell through the end of the funnel. He fell skillfully into the water to avoid any noise. He could hear men talking and walking around, and as he swam up to the surface, he saw everything. It was like lush and green, beautiful like something out of a dream. The men were all over the place, working and moving around, some running, some walking, and others still in the ground. Koffi swam out of the water and approached one of them attending to a garden. "Who are you?" the man asked firmly. "And how did you get here?" Koffi quickly hushed him and explained what had transpired and his mission there. The man burst into tears, narrating to Koffi how the mermaid demons had been killing off the men slowly by sapping their life force out of them when they were no longer useful. Anyone who talked about escape or complained about anything was cut into pieces and eaten by the demon sisters. He told Koffi that some of the men had come to accept their fate as eternal slaves to the mermaid demons. They are beautiful beyond words, Mr. Koffi. You can't resist these women. Their look would send your heart racing through your chest. Koffi thought for a while and decided to start his mission instantly. Koffi ran up one of the small hills and peered through the window to see one of the tall women being attended to by some men. He recognized her from the attack the previous night. He maneuvered his way until reaching 3 men washing themselves in a golden pool. They were preparing themselves to attend to the mermaids that night. Koffi decided to act. When the mermaids will be in their private chambers, indulging in their luxuries. He sneaked into the first chamber, where one of the mermaids lay, attended by 2 men. With silent precision, Koffi signaled and dispatched the men, ensuring they made no sound. He approached the mermaid. Her beauty was indeed enchanting, but Koffi steeled his heart, focusing on the pendant around his neck. As she beckoned him closer, Koffi struck, plunging his dagger into her heart. Koffi moved quickly to the next chamber. The second mermaid was equally as beautiful and charming. As he entered, she sensed his presence and turned to face him, her eyes glowing with malice. "So you have made your way here," she hissed. Koffi didn't waste time responding. He attacked with his weapon, and a short, fierce struggle ensued. But in no time, Koffi managed to kill her by driving his dagger through her back. The final and most powerful mermaid was waiting. She stood in the grand hall, her eyes blazing with fury and power. "You will pay for this insolence," she snarled. The battle that ensued was fierce, as Koffi, fortified with his charm, lunged at her with his weapon. She attacked with powerful waves of energy, her strikes swift and deadly. Koffi evaded her attacks, using his agility and training. The charm he was given glowed brightly, repelling some of her dark magic and strikes. The men watched in fear from a safe distance, hoping that Koffi emerged victorious. They fought for what seemed like hours, the whole around them shaking with intensity of the battle. Koffi, using every ounce of his strength and skill, finally managed to corner her. He activated the charm, which emitted a blinding light. This destabilizes his enemy for a brief moment, her form flickering between her beautiful guise and her true monstrous nature. With one final powerful thrust, Koffi drove his spear into her heart. She let out a deafening scream before disintegrating into ash. With the mermaids defeated, Koffi gathered the men. "We are free," he declared. The men, though weak and weary, cheered, tears of joy streaming down their faces. They followed Koffi as he led them back to the surface. Through the same underwater channel, they followed Koffi as he led them back to the surface, through the same underwater tunnel. When they finally emerged from the water onto the shores of Kayana Island, the women were there waiting. Joyous cries filled the air as husbands were reunited with their wives. Nana approached Koffi, tears in her eyes. "You have brought us hope and restored our families. We are forever in your debt." Koffi, exhausted but triumphant, simply nodded. He had found a new home and a new family among the people of Kayana Island. The village celebrated their return, and Koffi was hailed as a hero. The once deserted community now thrived with hope and joy. Koffi had not only saved the men, but had also given the women a chance at happiness and a future.
Koffi sails on an sea, land of dreams and mystery. 300 women by his side. Darkness waits where secrets hide. Mermaids stole the husbands dear, locked in caves filled with fear. Koffi stands strong, hears the cries. On this island hope survives. He will fight through the night, brave heart shining light. With a chance of the sea, Koffi set them free. Spirits guide him through the mist, nature's love in every twist. Women whisper ancient songs, strength and unity belongs. He will fight through the night, brave heart shining light. With a chance of the sea, Koffi set them free. He will fight through the night, brave heart shining light. With a chance of the sea, Koffi set them free. Drums beat steady, call the rain. Hearts unchained, breaking pain. Dreams of home start to rise underneath the starry sky.